Welcome. I'm very, very happy to be here today. And I have to say that I almost didn't make it. Because about a week ago, I had to reschedule my flight. And I went to my airline's website to do that. And then all of a sudden, a little chatbot popped up. Popped up like a mushroom, bottom right corner. And I was like, a chatbot. Chatbot said, engage me. I'm an AI-powered chatbot. I can help you get things done. So, of course, I was excited to try that out and just went for it. And maybe this title is already giving it away, but it was not the best experience ever. And this screenshot here is an actual screenshot. So this is my personal experience engaging that chatbot from last week. We took away the airline's logo, obviously, but this is original. So I went to the website and I said, well, I need to reschedule my flight. Chatbot went, well, really sorry, we had to cancel your flight, which wasn't true, but okay, and asked me if I had booked my flight with that airline. Which I said, yes, okay. That was the beginning. What unfolded was like 5 minutes and 20 messages going back and forth, me trying to get clarity from that chatbot if it could actually make that happen for me. Because it kept sort of evading that question, almost like a slippery eel lawyer, no offense if anyone's in the audience here, but that was the kind of experience that I had. So at some point I got really impatient. So I said, okay, I'm booked on that certain flight, I want to rebook. Can I do that with you? Yes or no? And it went yeah, well, if you want to change flight, you have to know this, have to know that. You have to book with us directly, which I said I had, right, 5 minutes ago. So then I lost patience. I said, okay, one last time. Can I rebook with you, yes or no? Do you see the change your booking button? No. And then no, I can't do it. So finally I gave up and asked me if I have any further questions, which I didn't. Question to you. In the past 12 months, who of you have engaged a chatbot? On some website. Okay. And who of you had a, let's say, similarly disappointing experience? Just show your hands, please. That's more than the previous question, actually. Interesting. So why is that the case, right? Why is that chatbot able to basically replay the FAQ of that website to me, but cannot actually make things happen for me? That's the question that I asked myself last week, and in fact, it's also the question that we're going to answer in this keynote, how to actually make that happen in this conference, and it's frankly also Camunda's mission going forward, and not just for chatbots, not just for customer-facing interactions or employee-facing interactions. Basically anything that is happening within your business operationally, how can that be powered by AI in a way that is actually great? So, one keyword here that you have heard of, I'm sure, is agentic. And just to level set real quick, agentic AI has a huge potential. In a nutshell, it allows us to automate complex human work. Things that required humans in the past might not be requiring humans going forward, thanks to agentic AI, right? Large language models, LLM, with a memory, with context, with clear goals, etc. Okay. We have to be aware that this is not just, a bit of automation, a bit more of automation. As Forrester states, this is a fundamental transformation. So it really has a fundamentally disruptive impact on the economy. It really completely redefines how organizations operate and compete, to just quote this. So in that sense, it is a transformation at a scale that we haven't seen before. And that is important to keep in mind when you're wondering about, how to embrace this, how to actually leverage agentic AI in my organization. Because if you just throw in mushrooms, in the sense of agents popping up like mushrooms, like my chatbot, in your existing infrastructure, that can become a challenge. Why? Well, because those chatbots or those little helpers, those productivity savers, those co-pilots, yes, they can unlock a certain value on a local level pretty quickly. That makes them so compelling, right? That's why they're popping up everywhere right now. But if you just throw that in an existing legacy, more or less, infrastructure, and do not integrate it well with your existing systems, your ERP, your CRM, your SCM, your HCM, don't integrate that well, and especially alongside the customer journey, the employee journey, so the end-to-end business process, it's going to explode in your face. And that's basically history repeating itself. We have seen that also in the past with other automation technologies. Think, for example, RPA, right? Bots coming up here, coming up there. At some point, hundreds of bots, but operating in isolation, not really operating alongside the end-to-end business process, alongside the end-to-end customer journey in a way that is actually integrated with all the existing underlying systems. It's a value trap. So you can unlock a certain value to a certain degree, but then you cannot go further, like my chatbot example, right? So in that sense, agentic AI is certainly a hype topic these days. However, at the same time, we're already entering this trough of disillusionment. So there's plenty of sources confirming that, yes, agentic AI projects look very exciting, however, might actually fail, might hit a ceiling, might not deliver the value that executives are hoping to get out of it. So in that sense, for example, only 8% are actually scaling AI at an enterprise level, embedding it into technology, into core business strategies. So just like, operates in itself at the surface like a toothless tiger or something like that. To sum this up, right now agents out there are hitting a ceiling. They're task-focused, so they're not handling mission-critical cases. Like, for example, rescheduling a flight, right? That's a customer experience situation that you could consider critical, and to a certain degree, yes, in fairness, complex. They're siloed, they're not woven into this end-to-end process, right? Just like, operating by themselves in a way. And this might be the biggest issue, they're not trusted. Because you can ask, okay, why? Why would I not be able to reschedule my flight? Right? The chatbot said, yeah, because of payments, I can't take that here. Why could it not take that there, but the website would take my credit card information? How does that make sense? And the reality is that right now, AI agents are not sufficiently trusted. So for example, as Capgemini states here, 27% of organizations only express trust in fully autonomous AI agents. And that is actually a negative development compared to 12 months ago. That's exactly what we're seeing if a hype cycle is like basically traversed, right? And there's lots of hopes that are then actually disappointed later on. That's where we are right now. So how do we get from this trough of disillusionment to the plateau of productivity in the Gartner hype cycle? I mentioned trust. And I do think that trust is the key word here. So as Gartner states that customer trust hinges on enabling explainable, guardrailed automation, and human-in-the-loop controls to build confidence. And I think a fair analogy here is autonomous driving, right? Like you have to trust the car with your life, basically, when you take your hands off the wheel. And I believe when you do that already, because certain cars have a certain degree of being able to do that for you, that you can trust them. But just think about that moment where you take your hands off the wheel and lean back. Do you take them off entirely and just go to sleep right away the first time you try that out? Or maybe you hover with the hands, you're hovering over the wheel to jump in if you feel it's necessary. Right? It's those nuances, human-in-the-loop control in this case now, that build trust over time because you have control. So you can actually make sure that what's happening autonomously is happening the right way until it has proven itself. Trust needs to be earned, and then you can let go and let the AI take over autonomously. And that's what Gartner states here is required so that over time, features like that will facilitate the transition to trusted AI actions without human oversight. All right, so that's the question really. If my little chatbot is a mushroom agent, right, popping up, doing tiny little things that are more or less valuable, but it's not powerful, how do we get from those mushroom agents to what we call enterprise-grade agents? So agents that are actually trustworthy, that we can trust to automate high-value, mission-critical work autonomously. And I don't have that answer. The good news is, I know someone who has that answer. So I would like to welcome our CTO, Daniel Meyer, on stage. Please, Daniel.
All right. Thank you, Jakob. So let's take a look at how do agents actually work. An agent that we use at Camunda ourselves is the GitHub Copilot agent. Who's familiar with that here? A few folks, yeah. So GitHub, obviously, you use it to manage your code. So what you can do is you can go to GitHub, your code repository, you create a ticket, an issue, where you describe this is the code change that I want, and then you assign that issue not to a developer, but you assign it to the agent. And then what the agent is doing is it's checking out the code, it is reading my text-based description of what is the code change that I want. Then it's trying to understand what do I want, it's changing the code, and then it's sending me a pull request, which I can review, and then either I accept the code change or I reject it. So that's how that Copilot is working. Now, what's interesting here is what is this thing doing, right? It is using a number of tools. So for example, checking out the code, changing the code, understanding the ticket. And then it is orchestrating those tools in a certain order in order to achieve the goal that it has. And that is the first thing I wanted to point out. So when we think about agents, we need to understand that agents are orchestrating. What are they orchestrating? The tools that we give them. And they're orchestrating those tools in a certain order to achieve their goal. So when we want to build powerful enterprise-grade agents, as Jakob pointed out, we need powerful enterprise-grade orchestration to build those agents. That is critical. And that brings me to the second thing. Now, what do we need from that orchestration? What kind of orchestration do we need in order to build such powerful agents? Now, in the case of the GitHub Copilot, there's an interesting thing here, right? Because it is sending me a pull request. It is not actually making the code change without telling me, right? It's sending me a pull request, which I then review. And that is critical. If it wasn't working that way, I would not be using it. I would not trust it to just change my code, push, and done, right? And that is something that is built into that orchestration. But what is also happening is it's dynamically trying to understand what I need and then making changes to the code which it then proposes. So this agent is bringing two types of orchestration together. And at Camunda, we call that deterministic orchestration. That is classic orchestration where I create a flow chart to define what should happen in which order. And then the other paradigm is dynamic orchestration, where AI is deciding what should happen in which order. And AI is in the driver's seat. Now, real-world enterprise-grade agents that I actually trust to do something are not either-or. But I need to bring those two things together, and I need to be able to do that in a very seamless way. And that paradigm is what we call, at Camunda, we call agentic orchestration. So basically the seamless blend of deterministic orchestration and dynamic orchestration within one agent. And that is super important because only if I have that, I can harness the power of AI, that's the dynamic part, but combine that with strict guardrails, which I express in a deterministic way. And that way I can break through that trust ceiling that we otherwise have. So what does that look like in detail? So here's a process that uses agentic orchestration. And you can see it starts with a deterministic flow, right? In the case of the GitHub Copilot agent, that could be checking out the code and reading the ticket. Then you see this blue box in the middle. That is the dynamic orchestration. So here, the LLM is deciding what should happen next. In the case of the GitHub Copilot agent, that would be the actual changes to the code, right? That is dynamic. But then you can see that after the blue box, there's again a deterministic follow-up. This could be submitting the pull request, right? And by making that deterministic, I'm making sure it's always happening. It's not just changing the code in my repository. But you can see a number of other things here. So you can see that I can also orchestrate other agents in a multi-agent approach. I can have human in the loop. I can have event-driven escalations and responses. And if we bring all of those things together, and if we give agents the power to do all of what you can see here on this slide, then we can build actual enterprise-grade agents with agentic orchestration. And that way we can then also fix the broken customer journey, because now such agents can live on my orchestration layer, on my now agentic orchestration layer, and those agents can now actually work across all my different systems that I have and integrate them. So in Jakob's example with the chatbot on the airline website, if I have agentic orchestration to build that chatbot, yes, I can interact with the customer to understand what they need, but then I can also actually implement the rebooking. I do not believe that airline does not have an API internally to do the rebooking, but the agent needs to be able to access it, and the agent needs to be able to do that in a way where we trust it to not just rebook random flights. That's where the deterministic part comes in. This has been recognized by analysts because this really puts us, this agentic orchestration capability puts us at the forefront of both the orchestration movement. Camunda is a best-in-class orchestration product, but also our unique approach to agentic orchestration uniquely positions us to build such agents. Now, we discussed a little bit about how I need to be able to seamlessly blend deterministic and dynamic orchestration. That's one part of the puzzle here. There's other requirements that we believe exist and that we're also hearing from our customers that we need to fulfill in order to build enterprise-grade agents. So obviously, if an agent is doing a critical task, it needs to be reliable, and I need to have a powerful orchestration engine to actually run it. If the agent is doing something meaningful, I need to be able to bring business and IT together so that both sides can understand what is this agent doing and how is it doing it. What do we need it to do? I need to have fine granular control over the agent's behavior. So if it does end up doing the wrong thing, I can course correct. So we need that. And we already discussed how we need a powerful integration layer so that it can actually connect to the systems that I have. And in order to enable that, it also needs to be developer friendly. So Camunda already brings together all those things, right? We have powerful orchestration engine. We can bring business and IT together. We are able to provide end-to-end visibility. And we do all of that with BPMN inside Camunda. And that is why we have extended BPMN so that you can now use BPMN directly to build your agents. So with BPMN, you can not only orchestrate agents, it's really good at that, but you can now also use BPMN to actually build agents. And in order to do that, we have extended BPMN and we have brought in the reasoning loop. So you can see that on the slide there, that big box. That is an agent inside Camunda, an agent built with BPMN. And the tasks that are available in that sub-process, those are the tools of that agent. And you define a prompt for the agent, and then it's going to execute those tools so long until it has achieved the goal. And by doing this, we basically bring the full power of BPMN, all the deterministic orchestration patterns that we have inside BPMN. And we are also bringing the full power of our orchestration engine into building agents. And that is super powerful. So we are not aware of any other approach to agent development currently that is as advanced as this approach, because we're basically taking BPMN, everything it can already do, but then allowing you to build agents directly within it. And our orchestration engine then becomes an agentic BPMN engine, which can, of course, still execute classic deterministic processes at scale, high volume, with all the patterns that we always supported, but that same engine can now directly execute agents. And that is then the technology basis that allows you to truly build a unified orchestration layer inside your organization where you bring together all your different automation patterns. So with Camunda, with Agentic BPMN and our engine, you can then automate processes end-to-end, you can build agents, you can manage cases, case management, and you can automate decisions, all of that on top of a single platform. That is extremely powerful. So when you think about that, what does that look like in practice? On this slide, you can see different examples of things you will find in the agentic orchestration layer. We have agents. We have deterministic processes, right? So an example is, for example, payment processing. I assume that payment processing will remain fairly deterministic, at least in the foreseeable future. But maybe as part of my payment process, I flag certain payments that I suspect to be fraudulent. And then I delegate that investigation to an agent, where now an agent is collaborating with a human to do that fraud investigation. I can run all of that on top of a single platform. That's what we're making possible with Camunda. And then all of those automation can, of course, integrate with your core technology and systems. And by having this orchestration layer, I can then power a new generation of agentic engagement layer, which doesn't then only power chatbots, but conversational, multimodal experiences that we will build in the future to transform how we are engaging with customers and how we are engaging with employees. This can only be achieved if I have an orchestration layer that can actually do that, and that is possible with Camunda. So if you want to put that in place inside your organization, we can work with you because you have to start somewhere. And it's actually not that difficult to get started. So here on the slide, you can see the steps you need to take in order to do that. So we help you discover use cases that are well suited for orchestration. We can then help you set up Camunda so that you have the platform in place to do it. We then help you to configure your own LLM and your own internal AI services so that the Camunda platform can use them. That is really important so that we can plug into your existing AI governance. We then help you to model and run and monitor your processes and eventually to gradually improve that. Our team gives you a guarantee that you can go through that process within 12 weeks. That is our first value accelerator. So if you'd like to get started with that, please approach us because we can work with you to make that happen. Speaking about building solutions fast, I wanted to show a little bit where is this going in the future. And what's interesting is we can now build powerful agents in Camunda, right? But we still have people building those agents, which is good and which will not change fundamentally. But the question is, can we also use AI to make that process more productive? Can we use AI to enable you to build processes, decisions, and agents much faster? And that's where our Copilot comes into play. So our Copilot can already be used to build processes. So we have a BPMN Copilot. We also have a Copilot that you can use to build forms. And we have a Copilot that you can use, and we're launching it now with 8.8, to build field expressions. That's the data mapping and conditions and expressions that are part of Camunda. So we already have these building blocks. But now we want to take that to the next level. So we want to take that Copilot and then basically wrap it inside an agent. And then we will have an agent within Camunda, so the Camunda Copilot agent, which then allows you to manage that full solution building lifecycle in a much better way. So and that agent will allow you to discover your processes, build your processes, validate and test your processes, deploy and operate, and improve your processes. And the way you can think about that is you will give it a prompt. So for example, create an agent to automate exceptions in the KYC process, build it and show it to me for review, right? And then the agent goes off, builds that process, maybe collaborates with stakeholders that know which systems need to be involved, which data integrations have to be done, does all of that, and then brings back to me a fully running agent. With that, we can drive much more value in the future and build such solutions much faster. To tell you a little bit about the solutions that our customers are already doing with Camunda and the value we're already creating, I want to hand it back to Jakob, who will educate us about that. Thank you.
All right. I don't know about you, but I find this very exciting. What Daniel just showed was the innovation that we have created with a product in the past, well, 6 to 12 months. So we have launched these new capabilities about 5-6 months ago, after 6 months of engineering, at our conference in Amsterdam. And I can tell you that the response was overwhelming. So I've never seen before such a quick uptake of something pretty innovative and to a degree disruptive, newly created in the product. Because still we're talking about mission-critical processes here, right? This is Camunda's sweet spot. We have been in this business for more than 10 years, and Camunda was never a product to automate, I don't know, your absence request process or some tiny, administration workflow. Camunda has always been in the thick of mission-critical core business process automation. So our customer base, by nature, is using Camunda for that. And when they're looking at Camunda for something new, it's always for this kind of complexity and criticality, which by nature takes time before it is being embraced, adopted, put into production, etc. But not this time. So we showcased the very first, you could say, rudimentary version of agentic orchestration 5 months ago and got an immediate strong adoption from our customer base. Here are just some logos of customers that we have worked with over the summer, basically, to not just conduct evaluations and prototyping, but in-depth proof of concept, all the way to actual projects that have been put in production are now being put in production as we speak. And again, not tiny little things, but the big stuff, the meaty stuff, in banks, insurances, retails, etc. Never saw that before, actually. And just to give you a few examples of the value that is being unlocked here. So, for example, one customer in healthcare, looking at streamlined processes to, again, blend deterministic dynamic orchestration in one solution to reduce call order times by 94%. In trading, improving efficiency, right? So freeing up analyst capacity, 7x, 86% reduction in manual efforts per case. That's the whole point, all right? We can automate work to a degree like never before, suddenly. A payments terminal provider, leveraging Camunda's Agentic Orchestration now for customer services. And in a nutshell, and I find this very interesting, I love that actually, this is a smaller company, a smaller customer of ours, like maybe 1,000 employees or so, but they're growing fast. They're growing very, very fast because they're innovators. And the question is, okay, how can they grow their business, their top line, over proportionally to their costs, right? So how can they scale very, very effectively? And they're doing that right now, thanks to Agentic Orchestration with Camunda. So in that sense, not just reducing average lead time per inquiry by 58%, time to fix, accelerating by 4x, but just not needing as many people. Like just doing a lot more without needing to grow the headcount as much. And a fun fact, side effect, actually the NPS has gone up for, the cases being handled by Camunda's agents because customers find them actually more friendly. Interesting. So in that sense, it's really a win-win on all levels. These are just like some summaries right now. I would love to double-click a bit on two examples here. And to that end, I would like to welcome George and Max on stage. Please join me. Hi, George. How are you?
Good to see you, Jacob.
Hi, Max. Thanks for joining. Okay, let's just have a quick look. George, who are you? And what is WellPoint? And why agentic automation for you?
Thanks for having me, Jacob. Welcome, everyone. So George Kutnarian, co-founder, president, CEO of WellPoint. WellPoint's a leading provider of affordable boutique-style residential assisted living and related healthcare services. And we specialize in offering a coordinated and integrated system of care for high acuity older adults with multiple chronic illnesses. That's a mouthful. More simply put, our vision is to democratize access to affordable housing and quality care for the older adult population. And
that's a good cause.
And why agentic AI, which is a great question. Our customers, their customer journey is very complex. We take care of residents or patients, as some might refer to them as, in residential settings. They live in our settings. They're there 24/7, 365 days a year, and oftentimes live with us for many, many years and have complex care needs. And so that's a very complicated journey. And with agentic AI, we can start shifting away from these more rigid linear processes to more dynamic processes where agentic AI centrally takes in information and then can decide what processes to run, when to run them, and actually use contextual information as opposed to just rigid rules. And then one step beyond that, layering in our own proprietary internal know-how to create what I envision as a model of hybrid intelligence. And that's very exciting for us.
Wow, that's amazing. Well, thank you. So Max, please tell us, just to elaborate, so this challenge that we just heard about, right? How have you helped with CAP BPM to overcome that?
Sure. So I'm Max Young, CEO of CAP BPM. We're the Platinum Partner of the Year for 2024, 2025 for the American continent. So
congrats.
Yeah, thanks. So, I think one of the things that was really interesting to us is George had a really strong vision of what he wanted to achieve. He wanted the flexibility of agentic. He knew how to ask the right questions. And by having, frankly, very high standards, he wanted like 7 integrations working in 3 weeks. And by being able to demonstrate that to him, to give that empirical data to him so he could have confidence in the solution, I think that helped him go and dream bigger and do more and more and more things, which, frankly, has been a really fun ride.
Awesome. So with that in mind, some results. Maybe we can just pull up that slide again, right? The next slide. Or you can also just verbalize that. But what are the outcomes that you have seen thanks to agentic orchestration with Camunda here at WellPoint?
Yeah, so one of the big things we saw is we were able to save 15 minutes per individual medication order. In our world, that's a really big needle mover, and we were only able to accomplish that through end-to-end automation. So the entire process is completely hands-free. So the only manual involvement is only for exception handling.
Wow.
And so now what that allows us to do as a growing company that's also not just adding customers, but adding workforce, is freeing up people's time. So now we can give time back to them so that they can utilize that in a highest and best value manner. And then the other thing on the customer side is it's actually creating greater customer transparency with real-time communication. So a lot of the bottlenecking that was happening before when things were manual, we've gotten rid of that, increased our throughput, and with real-time communication, we're really improving our care delivery model. And that's building customer value. So it's not just about efficiency from a process standpoint, but also delivering customer value at the same time.
That's how it should be. Amazing.
Absolutely.
And I think you're going to elaborate on that in the presentation later today, right? So Max, what is to be expected there? What can people take away from that session later?
Yeah, I think so. The thing that I think is really interesting is the improvements are great, but one of the things that's really compelling is that the improvements are scalable. So WellPoint now knows empirically that they can do 10 times, 100 times, 1,000 times more by literally just throwing more hardware at it. And that gives George the confidence and the latitude to go and dream bigger and be more ambitious, which is what we're really, really excited about. I also want to say, if this is the first time that you've heard about WellPoint, if this presentation is the first time, it will not be the last time. And I guarantee you, you're going to remember this moment.
Sounds exciting.
Thanks, Max.
Thank you so much, both. Congrats.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. One more. For my next example, I would like to ask Ante Plasivat on stage. Ante, please join us. Hey, how are you?
Hi.
All right, sorry. Okay, Ante, tell us, who are you, what is Finova, and why agentic orchestration for you?
So I'm Ante. Finova is a core banking provider in Switzerland. We serve mostly Swiss cantonal regional banks. And we use agentic AI primarily for front office processes. So there are deterministic processes such as onboarding, but there are always undeterministic parts in it. For instance, a relationship manager has to reconcile specific information. If somebody moved from A to B and the address has to be corrected, then this is something a human is doing. And this is exactly where we use agentic orchestration, because an LLM can infer from context. So usually a human being has to say, okay, this address is correct, the other one. If you need a source of wealth, then you send an email with the source of wealth. But if it's blurry, a human can maybe understand what's inside this bank statement. Yeah. But then the LLM can contextualize. You can use tools such as OCR, increasement, and then you can read this text. Then you can infer from context, and agents can use this information to fill the source of funds and source of wealth. So this is where we see a lot of potential.
Impressive. Speaking of which, so when you say potential and outcomes, right? What are the metrics that you care about? And I think we have a slide about that right here, that you're actually seeing happening now with agentic orchestration.
I mean, we can see it on both ends, on customer intimacy and operational efficiency. So we had the slide Daniel showed that even 50% of the process can be reduced if you use agents and interface to different systems. Sure. So interfacing to those different systems is crucial to access this data. So there we see increasements of 50% less time to lifecycle process. But once you have this data, an LLM can then contextualize and say, okay, this data set is used for this pending task and assignment. And then we can also see additional 40%. And therefore, in total, decreasing the time a relationship manager is onboarding complex customers by 90%.
9-0. That's crazy. Okay.
And at the same time, I mean, in terms of customer intimacy, there are faster ways to ship products. For instance, if you have a chatbot and you can say, please onboard this customer, you don't need a UI. So we are looking at, for instance, features like product bundling, where you can say, where a relationship manager can say, okay, please bundle a specific banking product for the customer, and you can go live with it over the chatbot, and later you build the UI, which takes, with us, 3 to 6 months to build a respective UI, and therefore also in terms of time to market, shipping products faster. We can start with the bots and with the chatbot, and later build the corresponding UI.
That's an actually great chatbot.
It would be, yeah.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much, Anton. I think you're going to speak tomorrow, right? So what can people take away as key learnings from that presentation? Why should they join?
It's about our journey in terms of AI. So we're showing how we adapt AI as a core banking provider, and also what kind of role agentic AI is playing, and what kind of hurdles we are overcoming. So it will be basically a journey how to go live with AI. So stay tuned for tomorrow.
That sounds interesting. Thank you. Okay, I think it's sufficiently clear by now that with agentic AI done right, we can unlock value to a degree that we haven't seen before. What we're asking ourselves, and Daniel already spoke a bit about that, is how can we accelerate that? And Daniel spoke about what is already there in the product today, innovation-wise, co-piloting, etc., but also where we're going, right, with regards to, okay, how can we allow you to use agents, to create agents? How can we allow you to get to value much faster? And we have some exciting new services offerings here. So we have an enterprise success tier, for example, now, that actually takes you by the hand a lot more, in a determined fashion to really help you embrace Camunda for these new use cases very, very effectively, as well as the first value accelerator with true hands-on keyboard support that we can provide together with partners. So whatever you need is what we can cover in order to get you there as quickly as possible. Okay, so now that's one way to look at it. And I would say an important angle here that we are now taking as, you could say, first-class citizen and how we think how we can support you, not surprisingly, is the solutions that are being created for the business in order to drive outcomes. We spoke about some of those outcomes recently, right? So it's that solution angle that is at the forefront now here at Camunda when it comes to, okay, what is needed to serve customers, to serve employees, and really generate immediate business value. That's not exactly new, right? But let's unpack that a bit so that you can see where we're headed, what you can expect from Camunda going forward. I'm doing that now in a very simplified fashion. So I'm just saying that, okay, let's look at enterprise-grade agents. They're doing, the magic, if you will. We then, of course, need a layer that engages the customer, need a layer that engages employees, as long as it's fully through processing. We might want to have some advanced decisioning, think about high-stake decisions, right, that require a certain degree of complexity. And of course, we need the integration in place in order to get into all the systems that exist in the organization. So one by one, real quick. Customer interface. This means, for example, an omnichannel experience, right? Customers want to engage via different channels with you. This might mean a customer portal, might mean a website, might mean my chatbot example, might mean emails, texts, WhatsApp, voice, you name it. So the solution is only a solution if all of that is covered. And Camunda's flexibility allows you to integrate your enterprise-grade agents with any customer engaging layer that you prefer. And you might have something already, right? You might prefer to build it yourself, you might have your existing customer engagement platform or portal, but we're also partnering increasingly with very interesting tech alliances in order to get you there faster. So in this example, you're seeing LiveRay, you're seeing Genesis, we're seeing GetVocal to engage customers conversationally, powered by AI, much more effectively. That's customers. How about employees? So they might be used already to using a certain CRM, a certain ERP system. Maybe they're already on certain collaboration platforms like Microsoft Teams or Slack or whatnot. So in that case, we can pick them up where they are, right? They don't have to get used to yet another front end, yet another tool. We have all those integrations, we have partnerships, we're actually investing increasingly into rich integration with SAP, ServiceNow, and others in order to provide that employee experience in a seamless fashion. That's the big strength of Camunda, has always been, right? This open architecture, this flexibility. We're also partnering with exciting tech alliances like LiveRay, Meyer, and others in order to let you create those rich front ends for your employees in a very quick fashion. Now, on the enterprise-grade agents, Daniel already spoke about that, right? So this unique ability to blend deterministic dynamic orchestration, to orchestrate complex long-running processes, to actually do multi-agent orchestration across multiple layers, also leveraging MCP, HRA, all of that is built into Camunda. Now powering that also with the event-driven streaming architecture gives you scalability and the flexibility to use any LLM that you might prefer. Let it be one of the big providers, let it be a specialized provider that has a certain industry expertise, you name it. On the advanced decisioning, we have the built-in DMN support in Camunda, right? Decision tables, decision trees, etc. And that is quite powerful. At the same time, we're also partnering with, for example, Tactile, who provide, especially in banking, highly powerful solutions to make advanced decisions, high-stake decisions based on AI. And to wrap it up, on the integration side, yes, of course, there's connectors. But connectors only take you so far. Like everybody has, like, I have connector for this, connector for that. But how flexible are those connectors really? Are you able to create your own connectors to integrate into your legacy homegrown applications, for example? Are they actually scalable? Are they monitorable, etc.? All of that is the case in Camunda, and also then in partnership with other providers, like Abby, for example, for document processing, etc., to give you solutions for certain use cases faster. All right? So in that sense, going forward, you can expect Camunda to be your partner to get to business outcomes with business solutions as quickly as possible. Tomorrow, in day 2, you're going to see a keynote where we're going to showcase a real-world solution for loan processing that showcases that, right? How you can create an enterprise-grade agent that processes loan requests, engages customers via Get Vocal, makes advanced decisions via tactile. So to just give you an idea about how those integrations actually look like. Partnerships are key here, not just with regards to technology, also with regards to services and support, expertise, bandwidth, etc. And with that in mind, I would like to welcome Prashant and Samir to join me on stage. Please. Hey Prashant, how are you? Hey Samir. Thank you. All righty. So, let me just grab my cards real quick, because this is going to be profound. So Prashant, if you don't mind, maybe just a few words about yourself, what you're doing at Cognizant would be great just to start it off.
Thank you. Hello, thank you for having us here.
In the microphone.
Yeah, I thought. Yeah, so I'm Prashant from Cognizant. I take care of our global practice for process orchestration and enterprise integration. And we've been a partner with Camunda for a long time, working with them, helping customers like you.
Cool. Thank you, Prashant. Samir, how about you?
Yes, thank you for having us here. I'm Samir Gupta. I'm the AI leader for financial services at EY. My team and I work across the FS sectors and helping our clients adopt AI, including generative and agentic AI, across all kinds of business applications.
Thank you. Let's just start with you right away. So we spoke a bit about orchestration now, right? Orchestration is the missing layer in AI agents in order to scale. So my question to you is, what is your perspective on that? So what makes orchestration the key, not just for moving past pilots, but to actually go into production and go into the enterprise level? What's your take on that personally?
Yeah, great question. I want to go back to the very first example you shared around your experience with a travel chatbot, right? And you did a poll, a lot of hands were raised in terms of negative experiences and underwhelming experiences people have had with usage of chatbots. And I'm fairly confident that a lot of those experiences would have been when you were on your personal banking website or even on the app on your device, right? And I think that's where the orchestration capability is tied, because in reality, a lot of what is happening is that these types of interfaces with customers and clients are really underpowered, right? They are really glorified information retrieval tools where you can query and get some very basic information, but they are not really set up to drive a lot of the additional complexity and process complexity that's needed, which is underpinned by the orchestration layer. So a very common example, and I'm sure most of the folks in the room have had this experience before, which is that you see a charge on your credit card statement or on your site, and you don't know what it is, right? It's some purchase you didn't make, or you lost your wallet. And all you want to do is to be able to dispute that transaction and to be able to get a refund and get a new card issued and have the charges reversed. That sort of capability, in order to really make it work, has to go beyond just designing and building individual agents, right? Which are just, let's say, doing the dispute intake, doing the complaints intake. They have to drive a lot of the additional fulfillment that goes downstream in terms of going and replacing a new card or changing a lot of very sensitive information on the account. There's also a factor, and this is just specific to FS, which is that it's a highly regulated industry, right? So there are things around controls that are required to make sure that customer experience is in a way that is fair. It's not creating customer harm. There's a lot of controls in place. And I think a big part of the orchestration layer has to do with some of those deterministic guardrails, right, that are sitting on top of agents, which are optimizing individual actions, but then they are, in some ways, they have to be controlled. There's also a big asynchronous aspect, that you alluded to earlier, which is that many of these things have to be tied together in which individual actions may work, and then they have to also pass on the actions, right? So a lot of things that you talked about earlier in the keynote, we see very real examples, and without a robust orchestration layer, that's where it kind of starts to fall apart.
Got it, thank you. Prashant, would you disagree?
No.
What's your 2 cents?
So, 2 cents very quickly. Any enterprise has probably 4 or 5 different business functions and units, and they probably have 200, 300 systems. So the orchestration layer is not an option. It is a must-have for your AI journey. I will just stop there.
Okay, that's fair. And maybe just to continue with you then. So platform roadmap as a keyword here. And when you're advising and you're helping customers understand what are the agentic use cases they should prioritize, like how do you go about that? Like what is the meaningful first step as opposed to something that might not make too much sense?
Yeah. I think with the last 3-4 years, many of our customers have gone through the proof of concepts and agents. We would term the AI, agentic AI is very different than agents. So I would say, if you want to go through the agentic AI journey, look for scaling. It's not enough to do it once. It has to be able to scale multiple times, not only in terms of throughput, but in terms of functions and cutting across different horizons. So that is the first one. Second most important thing is if you want to pick up a use case, nowadays explainability is an important thing. And very soon in most of the AI implementations, we will see immutable logs being recorded. It's not just because of regulation, it'll because if I was a worker, you would come and ask me, why did you do what you did? Yep. So now for any decisions, any actions, any outcomes, there has to be an explainability which will be recorded. So those 2 things I would say keep in mind when you want to take on the journey with any use case.
Okay, got it. So in that sense, yes. I like the keyword actually, like the log, right? Like the record, so to speak. Yeah, got it. So in that context then, when we look at those, fixed high assurance steps, like policy checks, approvals, KYC, ML, etc. So I take that, that's okay. So where do you see that need to coexist deterministic and dynamic agent behavior, right? Like where do you see a need in order to make sure we have the guardrails, but then also have flexibility? Who wants to take it? Yeah, go for it.
I can take one, but before that I will give a fresh off the kitchen example.
Oh, nice.
Okay, so here is an enterprise which have automated complete their accounts payable. Okay, excellent platform interacting with the ERP, using the SaaS platform for procurement, and then they have this accounts payable working. So, and the agent worked very fine, and then it paid a $2 million invoice to that particular vendor.
Wow.
Unknowingly to that department, that vendor also owed this customer $3.5 million. But that was not the problem because that side was not automated or agentified. The problem was that vendor went bankrupt, but you issued the check, right? Common sense tells you that you could have held back that. Yeah. So when it comes to deterministic and things, a lot more than just non-deterministic actions, it's context-based decisioning that you have to do. So orchestration layers will help you by putting the human in the loop, saying, hey, is this ready to go? So that is one example. Second example I will take in case of clinical care management. When it comes to a diabetic patient, you will have a patient who will come and insulin has to be regulated for that patient. Yep. Now, there are a lot of regulatory stuff that you have to do in terms of recording, checking with your EMR and EHR systems, and then prescribing a certain insulin movement. But you cannot do all of that. There are other things that you have to do in terms of his body weight or his exercise habits. Those are available in some other form. They're not very deterministic. So this is where the agents can coexist and then deployed at an orchestration layer.
Got it. So in that sense, really making sure that the agents like behave in the right way, contextualize, make the decision right that a human would make, common sense based. Got it. That makes sense. Yes, Samir.
I could add
Go for it.
example. So, and again, my examples are mostly FS sector related, right? So a lot of processes which are candidates for automation, right? They may involve some combination of tasks which are fully automated and some which require which may have a straight-through processing and others which may have a human element, right? And then there's always kind of that spectrum as to which part is automated and how much you can drive straight-through processing, in which the steps may be quite deterministic, and it has to do with things like customer client onboarding. It has to do with some of the credit reviews. And typically involving, review of a set of data, comparison it against some rule sets, and then applying a set of heuristics to that, right? So we see a lot of those types of examples coming up. And I think, again, going back to the orchestration point, if you have a robust orchestration layer and then you're able to optimize individual agents and sub-agents within that broader flow, then you can get to a better answer. Not just that's better in terms of performance, but also is easier to put into implementation because you're able to explain the sort of the components which are more heuristics driven.
Okay.
I will add to that.
Yeah, microphone, please.
Dan showed in terms of the patterns, right? This is not something new. It's existing right now in the industry in terms of standard patterns for deterministic solutions, and then non-deterministic. You can use different agents. I'll give an example in financial, in AML, anti-money laundering. You have to have reports for SAR reports, which is called, suspected activity reporting to the FinSer. Those are all very, very standard, very regulated activities. But before you go and do that, any fraud investigation takes about 7 to 10 days, doing a lot of other checks with third parties, counterparties, and those things. Now, we can bring both of them together with the orchestration layer. And this pattern is very simple. It doesn't matter if it's financial industry or life sciences or healthcare or logistics or manual. You can literally use this model to deploy and combine both. And in fact, you can use the RAG model to go back and fetch the different documents that the agent can feed into and analyze that solution.
Got it. So in that sense, the highly regulated, very deterministic execution, so to speak, right? Of AML in that context now, and then also the investigation beforehand, where we can potentially drive automation, right, with Agentic.
Yeah, that's right.
Got it. Great. Speaking of making this feasible, so to speak, in a complex organization, very many organizations already run on certain ERP, certain CSM, certain ITSM platforms, all of that. So there's this existing stuff, so to speak, in the organization. And I will put basically agents on top of that. So question being here, okay, what is your take on how to actually stitch this together in a way that is not too disruptive, but really builds on what exists already in the organization? You're really eager, right? You want to go first, then it's
okay.
turn.
So I think ERPs, CRMs, and some core admin platforms are not going to go away anytime soon.
That's why, yeah.
So the best thing is to leverage the assets that we have through the existing APIs, existing connectivity, existing data those have. You might have to put a data fabric layer to make sure that the data sovereignty and data governance are captured to make sure that the right people have access to that data from different territories or nation states. So that's the one thing we have to do. Second is you build an orchestration layer, which Dan showed, across all of that to make sure that you manage, govern for observability, to controls. And one last thing that we have to have in those systems is you have to be able to switch off the agent. That's an extremely important. A lot of compliance issues happen, a lot of malware and those things happen. So that your ability to be able to switch off the agent is an extremely critical factor here, and not just continue with the operations.
Yeah, okay, got it. That says rein it in, firewall it, so to speak. Yeah. Yes, got it. What's your take, Samir? Anything to add here?
No, I think Prashant covered it. One thing I would say is that there is a future-proof design, right? In terms of how do you build these things that they are modular in nature, right? And you touched upon, I think one of your earlier slides, there was that clients like to bring their own LLMs and be able to have control, whether real or perceived, in terms of how these agents get built, right? So, I mean, I agree with all the things Prashant said, and these things are not going to go away, like you said, in the foreseeable future. But I think where the focus of this capability is to be able to do it in a way that it can interact efficiently with some of these platforms, and then be able to provide the flexibility on top where you can then build things that are going to outlast and that are going to be more future-looking and forward-looking.
Got it. Thanks a lot. Last words? Then we wrap it up.
No, thank you very much. Thanks for being here. Hopefully you will enjoy all the breakout sessions.
Yes, yes. And I think you also have a booth in the exhibition area, right? Both. So if people want to learn more about that, they can just visit you there.
Yeah. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. All right. Good. So, wrapping it up. I hope you got a sense for what we mean with this new era of automation that we have just entered now. I can say that we are incredibly excited to be on this journey with you. We're seeing a huge potential, bigger than ever before, to drive automation in the organization in a way that is actually smart and sustainable, scalable, resilient. That's what you can expect from Camunda going forward in order to drive business outcomes instantaneously.